Our shurim are dedicated in memory of Elisheva Sima, Bat Reb Zalman, Zichronah Livracha. Okay. I'm going to refer to a machzer with our Rabbi Rav Soloveitchik's Perushim on Yom Kippur. This particular volume I received B'Yerusha from my father, Zichron Livracha, and it was given to my father on his 80th birthday by my Aunt Libby and my uncle Rabbi Aaron Ziegler, Zichron Livracha, in 2006. Okay? So I have this at home, and there was a particular section that I'm going to refer to. You're right, Haderet V'Emunah, which is today's shiur. And we'll see what the Rav had to say about this very interesting poem. Let me just shut down the phone. What I played before...
Oh, I left my phone.
That's okay. Now you don't have to shut it off. What I played before, a version of the Nigun Haderet V'Emunah, it's found on the disc that was put out by Yeshivat Har Etzion on the 25th anniversary of the yeshiva. The yeshiva was founded in November of 1967, shortly after the Six-Day War. And I was part of the second year of foreign students, the Chutznikim, as we called it. That was 1972-73. Before there was even a big campus in the yeshiva, and before there was anything, there were two, just we call them tzrifim, just huts of sorts. And that was really the yeshiva. And one day, in the morning Seder, Rav Amital came over to me and he saw that I was like dreaming. You know, in Yiddish we say chuluming, dreaming. He tapped me on the shoulder and he wanted to know why I wasn't involved in learning. I told him that I had just composed a niggin. So he says, now, on Beis Medrash time, you compose a niggin, come to my office. I want to hear the niggin. If I like the niggin, you can stay. If I don't like the niggin, you can pack your bags and leave.
He wasn't serious.
I don't know how serious he was or not, but I went to the office, I sang him the niggin from beginning to the end, and he said, sing it again, a second time, from beginning to the end. And he says, okay, on Shabbat you're going to teach this to the yeshiva, and now you can go back to the Beit Midrash. This is the song Haderet V'Emunah. In the disc that they put out on the 25th anniversary, which many of the Bogrim, the graduates, came back and just sang the songs of Yeshivat Har Etzion, and that was put out on this disc. So they asked me to come up and, sing this, and they printed the story that I just told you on the disc. So this is famous. This story it's one of these stories that I didn't even make up. It actually happened. So many people are familiar with another version of Haderet V'Emunah song from the yeshivas, and I remember hearing it from my brother Zichron Livracha, who came back from Keren B'Yavne, which was a different. It was how is it? Let's see how there's V'Emunah. Haderet V'Emunah Lecha Yolamim. And in Gush, for many, many years, they alternated between the other standard niggin in the yeshiva world and my niggin. So the Gush guys know the niggin. Even I just spoke to Sam McCarthy now. I asked him, he says, yeah, this is the Gush niggin. He said he knew it. So I said, yeah, I have something to do with it. The Haderet V'Emunah, pointed out before by Rivka, if you daven Nusach Sfard, you get to meet it every Shabbos morning before Baruch She'amar. There, the Psukei Simcha in Nusach Sfard is a little bit different and a little bit longer than Nusach Ashkenaz, and it includes, after Hodul Hashem Ki Tov K'Olam Chasdo, it includes Haderet V'Emunah, and then you say Baruch She'amar. In Nusach Ashkenaz, it's just not there at all in any of the Tfilot. I can tell you that there's a variety of minhagim that I picked up from Rabbeinu Google, the Shlita. So what I just said now is what's pretty much known and accepted, but there was a minhag in Catalonia, which was northeast, which was in Spain, And there they said Haderet V'Emunah every single day before Baruch Shamar. It wasn't just for Shabbat. And then there was a minhag by the Arizal only to say it on Yom Kippur, and which became basically Nusach Ashkenaz, because the only time in Nusach Ashkenaz you have Haderet V'Emunah is indeed in the Machzor of Yom Kippur for Shachris, as part of the Piyutim before Kedusha. Before Kedusha, so normally our Kedusha is simply either Nikadesh et Shimcha ba'olam kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom kakatuv v'yad v'yecha. We're going to say Kedusha the way it was heard by the Malachim. So who heard the Malachim? Yeshayahu Hanavi v'kara ze el ze v'yamar right kakatuv v'yad v'yecha. You open up a book of Tanakh, you see Yeshayahu Perek Vav, and there it says v'kara ze el ze v'yamar kadosh 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 Hashem tzvot nochos kvodo. Yeshayahu in the Maaseh Merkava, in the vision of the chariot, he's hearing the song of the Malachim. And Yecheskel heard a different song, Baruch Kvod Hashem Mimkomo. So that's in Yecheskel Perek Aleph. Vatisein Ruach Veshmach Harai Kol Rash Gadol, Baruch Kvod Hashem Mimkomo. So the only ways we know the Shirat Alavim is because somebody eavesdropped. That was Yeshayahu and Yecheskel. So that's why we say, Nikadesh et Shimcha ba'olam, we're going to sanctify God's name. How are we going to do it? Kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, as the heavenly creatures also did. How in the world do we know about that? Kakatuv al yad nevi'echa, it's written in the Nevi'im. Open up a Tanakh and you'll see it. V'kara zel ze v'yamar kadosh kadosh kadosh. So that's the Kedusha. In Sfard says, Nakdishach v'naritzach, we will sanctify and so on. Kinoam siach sod sarfei kodesh, in the sweetness of the voices of the Malachim. Hameshalashim lecha Kedusha, who have a triple-edged Kedusha. Kakatuv al yad v'yecha, v'kara zel ze v'yamar. Those who were at the Yeshiva University dinner in 1985 or 1986, so I gave a little talk on this difference between Nusach Ashkenaz and Nusach Sfard, that in Nusach Ashkenaz it says, HaMakdishim Shimcha B'Kodesh, who sanctified your name, and in Nusach Sfard it's HaMeshalshim Lecha Kedusha, who have a tripled version. The triple version is absent, conspicuously absent, in the Kedusha of Nusach Sfard, Ashkenaz, and even for Shabbat, in Nusach Sfard, we say, Keter Yitnu Lecha, Yachad Kulam Kedusha Yeshaleshu. Again, the word triple is there. In Ashkenaz, it's Naritzcha v'Nakdishcha Kesot Siach Sefer Kodesh. There happens to be two ways. What? Yecholiyot Christianity, Yecholiyot, because there was Christians used the Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh to signify that Yeshayahu was alluding to the Trinity, the idea of Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. But and maybe in Ashkenaz they wanted to. I have to integrate that point, Mary. That's a very good point. That they wanted to downscale the Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. But if you look in the Dat Mikra, he brings two different ways of understanding the Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Either every Malach said Kadosh 3 times, Kadosh, 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 and if you pay careful attention to Uvalat Zion Goel in the morning, you have the Aramaic explanation, translation/explanation, and each Kadosh is something else, which means each Kadosh means something else, and each Malach said Kadosh 3 times. Whereas in the other version, each Malach said Kadosh once, except Yeshayahu, he started hearing reverberations. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. He was hearing it from all sides, so that's what he wrote down. So that's why in the Nusach Sfard, it's the triple-edged. Hameshalshim lecha Kedusha. Each Malach says 3 Kedushot. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. But Nusach Ashkenaz, HaMakdishim Shemcha B'Kodesh, seems to indicate that each Malach only said it once. For sure, there's no indication that each Malach said it 3 times. So this is just something of interest. So you have, this is going to be important, where the Haderet V'Emunah is placed on Yom Kippur before Kedusha. It's before Kedusha. It's like an intro. It's one of the piyutim that introduces Kedusha on Yom Kippur in the morning. There are some communities, as I said, that only say it on Yamim Noraim, and there were some communities that actually said it just on Shabbat and Chagim and Yamim Noraim, just on, again, before Baruch Shamar. And there were some communities that seem to have had it every single day before Baruch Shamar as a weekday type of piyut. Most of the people have it, everybody has it for Yom Kippur. Some, as Nusach Sfard people, have it for Shabbat before Baruch Shamar. And in the encyclopedia, they added that on Simchat Torah, one of the songs that we like to sing in Shul, in the middle of the Hakafot, we take a break in the middle of the Hakafot, is Haderet V'Emunah, and somebody gets up and he says, before L'chai Olamim, he says, either in Hebrew, English, Yiddish, Chinese, whatever, L'mi Ulemi, L'chai Olamim, Tzavayman and Tzavayman, L'chai Olamim, to whom and to whom, L'chai Olamim. And I remember in Ol Nechama, they taught me the French. Just, I should be in tune with some of the people. Beseda. Now, it was the Maharil. Maharil is one of the 15th century poskim of Ashkenaz, who really sets the tune for Minig Ashkenaz until this very day. Says absolutely should not be said Adler V'Emunah except for Yom Kippur, because we're going to see that this is another tefillah that was heard by the Malachim singing. Somebody heard it, and somebody recorded it, and it's an angelic song. And the only day during the year that OUisrael has a status of a malach is on Yom Kippur. Once a year, you enjoy a certain status of upgrade to being a malach, and then you have the right to say it. It's almost similar to the Vilna Gaon's injunction against singing Anim Zemirot the whole year, and just have it for Yom Kippur. So we mentioned this when we did the Anim Zemirot. So here too, we have a very, very particular song that was composed by ... So here on the page it says, Miyuchas le. So I explained once what miyuchas means, attributed to. Attributed to means we don't have a clue. But maybe we have a clue, but we're not absolutely sure. And it says, Miyuchas to Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha Kohen Gadol. Wow. That is Rabbi Yishmael from the Mishnah. We know him. We've met him already in the Tanya story. That when he went into the Kodesh Kodashim, so this isn't Rabbi Yishmael of contemporary of Rabbi Akiva, or maybe it might be, because they lived through the Churban at the end. So Rabbi Shmuel goes into the Kodesh Kodashim, and Kadosh Baruch Hu asks Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, give me a bracha, Borcheni. Right? Okay, so I'm going to review this whole thing. So this is Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. Now this Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha Kohen Gadol shows up in the story of the Ela Eskara, of the Asara Harugei Malchut, the 10 martyrs, where Rabbi Shmuel is one of them, the Kohen Gadol, and the other Chachamim turn to him, and they ask him to use the God's four-letter name, Shem HaMefurash, to intercede and find out what's going on. Do we deserve this to be executed? Because here you have this Roman officer coming and saying, look, the 10 sons of Yosef sold Yosef, and nobody paid the price. So maybe now the time has come for you to pay the price. And Rabbi Shmuel hears from the other side, Kablu et adin, you have to accept this. And it's a Gzeira min hashamayim. You have to accept this. And you have to understand, I'm not going to go back now to the Ela Eskara, I'm just pointing out that this was the same Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, Kohen Gadol, who has this ability to tune in to something that's happening on the other side of the fence, we'll just call it that way, on the upper side, top side of the fence. Tune in a little bit. There is a book called Sefer Heichalot. The word Heichal means chamber. Sefer Heichalot and Sefer Merkava. The minute you hear the word Merkava, you know this is Kabbalistic. And even the word Heichal is going to be Kabbalistic. So you can pick it up in the National Library, copies of the Sefer Heichalot. It's a very, very early Kabbalistic writing. Who authored it? So, as usual, differences of opinion, but it certainly predates the Middle Ages, which means it's not from the days of Rashi or even earlier Rashi, maybe from the days of the Geonim, Rabbi Sadia Gaon, maybe a little bit earlier than that, post-Gemara, 6th, 7th century, that could make sense as well. But there are those who claim that it's even earlier than that, and takes us back to the days of the Mishnah and Gemara, the Tanaim and Amoraim, and one of the characters that not only features in Sefer Hechalot, but you seem to get the opinion that he had something to do with authoring this, was Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha Kohen Gadol. And having said that, there is a section where he's talking about hearing the Malachim sing the Shirah of Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvaot Beloch Ol Haaretz Kvodo, almost reminiscing the experience of Yeshayahu Hanavi, except that before the Malachim got to Kadosh, 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 they sang another song, Ha'aderet ve'emunah l'chai olamim. And Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol transcribes it for posterity. So this is the traditional approach to who may have authored the Aderet Emunah. I say it with some degree of reservation, because to absolutely prove this is going to be impossible. But until somebody comes up with something better, it's this makes a lot of sense. And also makes a lot of sense why it became integrated into Yom Kippur liturgy as being a preamble for Kadosh, 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 as from Malachim singing Haderet ve'emunah. If you look at the page of the song itself that I have here, I have two versions of it. The top part is the version that we are familiar with in our Sidurim and Machzorim for Yom Kippur. And the second source, where it says again, Aderet ve'emunah l'chai olamim, there are certain phrases that are highlighted because they are different versions. Now, different versions, Shinui Nusach, is not something strange. We have Shinui Nusach, different versions of Shmona Esrei, certain words here and there. We've pointed this out in the past. We have Shinui Nusach in Piyutim. We've seen this in the last year and a quarter. Different versions because things are transcribed from generation to generation, and they cross borders, and sometimes things slip up in the transmission. This is all could be a function of human error. It could be a function of tikkun, of correction. No, it can't be this word. It's got to be the other word, something of this nature. But whatever it is, there is another version here of the Haderet Emunah, and it's that second version that I have printed on the page is what's found in the Sefer Hechalot. So that's of interest. In other words, what we have in our Sidurim is 90% matches the Sefer Hechalot, but there are 10% Shinui Nusach. So let's take it from the top, and then also look at source number one. Between the sandwich, between the two versions of the Haderet Emunah, it says Sefer Hechalot Rabati Perek Kav Zayin Kafret. You have it? And it says Amar Rabbi Shmuel. Here he is already. Ge'eh ba'ofot, the most proud of the birds that were created was the Nesher, was the eagle. I know that in modern Hebrew, eagle is ayat, and Nesher in modern Hebrew is a vulture. But don't tell that to any Adler who Hebraicized the name to Nesher, because anybody who did, Adler in German Yiddish is an eagle. And that was translated as Nesher. There were Rabbanim here in Eretz Yisrael, Rav Nesher, who were born Adlers, and they Hebraicized the name. So, Ga'eh ba'ofot Nesher, Dmut Nesher, the form of a Nesher, of an eagle, Bekis'acha, is on the throne, your throne, on God's throne. Kavata, you have established on your throne. Now this all comes from Yecheskel the Maseh Merkava, where he describes in great detail what the throne of the chariot next to the throne of God, and has 4 figures, and one of them is the Nesher. Pnei Nesher, the face of the eagle, lahem, Kalin kenesher, the face is light like the nesher. Ofafim kenesher, flying like a nesher. Nasim, traveling kenesher. Ve'ematcha tahor alehem, and everybody is fearing this. This has something to do with the mode of the angels standing before Kadosh Baruch Hu in absolute fear. And apparently the nesher was that which emitted that fear. V'chulan mishalshin kedushatcha b'kedusha mishuleshet. In case you missed the point here, it's triple-edged, this kedusha. Kadavar shene'emar, as it is written, kadosh, 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 Hashem tzvaot b'lo chol haaretz kvodo. Okay, so according to this version, it's like Nusach Sfard. And that's not an accident that Nusach Sfard picked up on the Kabbalistic tradition. The Hasidic world picked up on the, who davens Nusach Sfard, picked up on the Kabbalistic tradition. You know, there's only one Hasidic sect that davens Nusach Ashkenaz. It's in my neighborhood in Katamon, the Erloi. Why? Because they come from the Chatam Sofer, who was born in Frankfurt. Frankfurt. The Chatam Sofer. The Erloi Hasidim are the only Hasidic sect that daven Nusach Ashkenaz. And they'll say, Nikadesh et Shemcha b'olam. Because the Erloi Rebbe was a grandson of the Chatam Sofer, who was born in Frankfurt, Germany. So Frankfurt, Germany, in the same era, had Shamshon Nafal Hirsch and the Chatam Sofer, who had opposing ideas on how to deal with the modern world. Schreiber is Sefer. Oh yeah, the family name became Schreiber. Sofer is a Schreiber, is a writer, right? That's correct. So, but most of the Chassidim daven Nusach Sfard, which is based on Kabbalistic, and you see right here, this is a Kabbalistic source. V'chulan mishalshelin kedushatcha b'kedusha mishuleshet. In case you missed the point, it's triple. Kakatuv, as it says, Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvaot. So this now is the source of the Haderet V'Emunah. In the Sefer Hechalot, it continues with this version. And we just drop down to, after Vav, Havad V'Adikut L'chai Olamim, it says, Haschut V'Hazikaron L'chai Olamim. Hachein v'hachesed l'chai olamim, hatehara v'hatov l'chai olamim, hayakar v'hayeshua l'chai olamim, and by Otsamach, hasod v'hasechel, Otpei, ha'pe'er v'ha'pele, ha'tzahala v'ha'tzdaka, ha'kilus v'ha'kedusha, ha'rananut v'ha'rachamim, ha'sheket v'ha'sha'anan.
What's kalus?
Kilus means shevach, praise. Praise is another word for praise. So I'm just pointing out that you've got these different versions, but now let's go back to the traditional up on top of the page. Let's read it. Haderet v'emunah l'chai olamim. Let me just read a few lines from the Rav on Haderet v'emunah, found in the Machzor. Right, Haderet v'emunah, he translates, strength and faithfulness are his who lives eternally, l'chai olamim. This is a central piyut of Shacharit because it is this piyut that is recited daily by the angels. And according to tradition, Rabbi Akiva heard it in a dream that the angels sang to Hashem. This is now a different tradition other than the Sefer Hechalot that posits that it's Rabbi Shmuel. There is an Agadah in the Midrash that it was Rabbi Shmuel's contemporary, Rabbi Akiva, got this in a dream. Okay, but we know the age, we know the era. We're talking about the first generation after the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash. Actually, they lived through it. They were Bar Plukta, right? They argued with each other pretty often, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. And the whole methodology of halachic midrashim is different. There's the Beit Midrash of Rabbi Akiva, the Beit Midrash of Rabbi Shmuel, and they are different. But all right, so the Rav mentions this particular tradition, and he continues. The creation of man was in some sense a sacrificial act on the part of the Almighty. Now, Kadosh Baruch Hu sacrificed some of his space, if you want to call it.
He endowed man not only with his image, but with his numerous skills. All these attributes, such as those listed here in the Aderet V'Emunah, belong to God. L'chai olamim, l'chai olamim. But God, in his generosity, bestowed some of them on man. Man is a productive, creative being, possessing many great attributes, but they all truly belong to God, who simply allowed man to consider himself master and Lord with a small L, Lord, over his environment. Rav said this in a shir in 1956. Just to give us a little bit of a tasting of the hashkafa, the ideas of what's behind this particular song, Ha'aderet V'Emunah. So it has to do with the midot, the character that a Kadosh Baruch Hu exhibits to this world. So there's a mitzvah in the Torah. It's found in Parshat Kitavo. V'halachta bidrachav, you shall follow his ways. And the Rambam counts it as one of the 613 mitzvot. And the question is, what exactly does it mean? What are God's ways that we have to imitate? So our Chachamim helped us out a little bit. Take a look in the Chumash. It says that he's Rachum, Mahu Rachum, as he is compassionate. Gamata Rachum, you should be compassionate. Mahu Chanun, Afatah Chanun. Mahu Erech Apayim, he's patient. You should be patient. Mahu Malbish Arumim, he clothes those who need clothing, so you should too. Mahu Matir Asurim, as he does all these things, so shall you pick up on it. Mahu Rofei Cholim, Afatah Rofei Cholim. That's why the Gemara says, Mikan nitan reshut l'rofei l'rapot. You might think like Seventh-day Adventists, that if God made somebody sick, let it be. They took it to the U.S. Supreme Court that somebody doesn't want a transfusion. He wants to die because if this is God's will, that's retzach. You can't do that. If you don't save somebody, you've killed him. And the Torah says, v'rapo yirapeh, you shall heal if somebody's wounded. And the Gemara in Baba Kama says, Mikan nitan reshut l'rofei l'rapot, that the doctors have permission. And the Rambam went further. Permission? Chayav harofei l'rapot. Well, the Rambam was part of the doctors' union, so he had to stick up for the doctors. No? Chayav, the Rambam uses the word chayav. It's obligatory for a doctor to heal, to try to heal, because we are actually following in the footsteps of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Rofei Cholei OUisrael, the healer. That means you have to become a healer. That's what it means. And here we're seeing different midot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? So you have Ha'aderet V'Emunah. Aderet means adir. Adir means tremendous, right? Ha'aderet, that doesn't mean here, the Aderet sometimes means the mantle of Adarto shel Navi. Here it means the very, very symbol of being the strongest. Adir b'marom. He'emunah, God is the source of faith. The source of faith. L'chai olamim. So l'chai olamim is sometimes translated, it's to you, God. L'chai olamim, who lives forever. To you, God, who lives forever. And sometimes it's, if we want to know where we can find these characteristics, turn to God. L'chai, le, with a lamed, le, chai olamim. Look to God, look towards God, and you will get the picture where he's the aderet and emunah. Bina and bracha, where Kadosh Baruch Hu is the source of wisdom, the source of bracha. The source of bracha. And I'll just say parenthetically, that the author of the Sefer HaChinuch, when he talks about brachot in the context of Birkat HaMazon, he says, when we say Baruch Atah Hashem, that doesn't mean blessed art thou God. You're giving God a bracha. He doesn't need your brachot. So what are you doing giving him a bracha? So the answer, says the Sefer HaChinuch, is you're reading it wrong. It's Atah Hashem, you, God, are the source of the bracha. That's why we're turning to you. Baruch Atah Hashem. It's just a syntax issue. You have to read it properly. Baruch Atah Hashem. You, God, are the source of the bracha. So there's food here. It's because you saw to it that there'd be food here. There's good tidings. You saw to it that there would be good tidings. You are the source of the bracha. In the discussion that we had with Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked the Kohen Gadol to give him a bracha, Barcheni, so there, the Rav had this whole idea how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as if to say, we use the word kaviyachol, as if to say, shrivels up and wants human beings to take an initiative. Almost to say, Kadosh Baruch Hu sitting on the sideline, get up, you, man, get up and do something. Don't just sit back and wait for me to do it. And this was the understanding, you give the bracha to me. Don't wait for my brachot. But it's the same concept that I'm just saying now. Somebody's sick, okay, Beseda, you're going to go to a doctor. Yes, you turn to Kadosh Baruch Hu that the doctor should know what he's doing. That's also important bracha, no doubt. The doctor should have the right idea, the right diagnosis, and take it from there. But God is the source of bracha. Habina v'habracha l'chaylamim. Haga'ava v'hagdula. If you look at the other side on the page, so from Yeshayahu Perek Yud Bet, it says, Zamu Hashem ki geut asa mudat zot b'chol haaretz. Right, so you have a pasuk in Yeshayahu where this is part of the it's a shira that Yeshayahu was saying, and geut is from the word exalted. I don't want to use the word pride, but it's exalted, and that's why the word haga'ava v'hagdula doesn't mean arrogance. It should not be translated as arrogance. We somehow got used to that translation because of the Musar movement, where they spoke about gava, Baal gava, where in modern Hebrew we have a slang. It's called a shvitza. So if somebody called you a shvitza, you should know that was not polite. It's not polite. It's a pejorative term to somebody who's a shvitza. It means it's a show-off. That's a show-off, an arrogant person. That's not what Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem malach geut lavesh. The Kadosh Baruch Hu is arrogant, chas v'shalom. It means exalted. So exalted. So he's the gava v'agdula. Correct. In the second version, I overlooked highlighting this. The word ga'ava is not even there, but it's gdula and gvura. Yefeh. So now I just want to cite the following pasuk. Turn to source number 4 on the second page. From Divrei Yomim Aleph, Perek Kaftet. Everybody knows this pasuk from the Siddur. If you come to shul every morning, you're invited to Ol Nechama 6:15 and join the 6-7 other women in the Ezrat Nashim, right? And what? You can come.
Join the women.
No, don't join the women. You can join the men downstairs. You can join the 20 men downstairs, right?
What time?
6:15. But on Thursday, it's at 6:05, okay? So tomorrow, 6:05. Beseda? Not for you? No?
I'm up.
Okay. Beseda. Most of the women started as Kaddish sayers, but stayed. Pashut stayed. Yeah. So we say in Vayvarach David, we say this pasuk from Divrei Hayamim, Lecha Hashem hagdula v'hagvura v'hateferet v'hanetzach v'hahod. I mean, this is really spelling it out about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You are the great, you are the most heroic, if you want to call it that, or the strongest, the most Tiferet. How do you translate Tiferet? Netzach, glorious. Netzach, Hod. There seems to be synonymous. Each one has something else. Ki chol b'shamayim v'va'aretz. You are everything in heaven and earth. Lecha Hashem ha'mamlacha v'mitnasei l'chol rosh. You are the master. You are the royalty. You know, some kings, some prime ministers, some leaders, they think they're the boss, right? Yeah, some defense ministers, whatever, they think they're the boss. But let's move away from current events for a moment. Lecha Hashem hamamlacha v'mitnasei l'chol rosh. L'chol rosh. Kadosh Baruch Hu is above all the other bosses. He's the boss of the bosses. This pasuk impacted on quite a few phrases of the of the Adler Temunah. So we'll see it here. It's Gedula, Hagava v'Gdula. And we have a little, we just scroll down a little bit. Hahod v'Hadar, that's Hod is there. And then you have Amamlucha v'Memshala, you have Hano v'Netzach, and you have Tiferet at the end, Hatila v'Tiferet, Tehillah and Tiferet. So practically every single word from that pasuk, from Divrei Hayamim, that we have in Vayivarach David, is there. It's found in the Haderet V'Emunah. That's not an accident. When was Vayivarach David put into the Siddur? Now, when you study Siddur, so you have to start from the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, 2,500 years ago, beginning of Bayit Sheni, and you talk about the skeleton of the Siddur. Shmon Esrei. Then you have Kriyat Shema and the Brachot. In the Mishnah, they have this already. Days of the Mishnah, that's all there. In the days of the Gemara, there's already Psukei de Zimra, with a Baruch Shamar bracha and Yishtabach bracha concluding. But what is the core? What is the Psukei de Zimra from the days of the Gemara? It's from the parak that we call Ashrei, which the pasuk Ashrei comes from a different chapter. The chapter starts Tehillah LeDavid, and then it's Aro Mimcha. It's Aleph. It's according to the Aleph bet. Aro Mimcha, Bechol Dovador, Dor Ledor, Godol Hashem, Dor Ledor, Hadar Kvoledecha, Vezuz Narotecha, Zecher Avtev Chayabiu, and so on, until Tfilat Hashem Yidabepi, which is the Taf. So that's the parak of Ashrei. And then, if you open up a Sefer Tilim, the next parak, the next parak, the next parak, the next parak, concludes Tilim with Kol Haneshama Talel Ya Hallelujah. That's the final pasuk of Tehillim. And why do we say it twice?
Because you don't want to end it.
Yefeh. Yefeh. So is that your thought? You thought it now?
No, it's your thought.
Right. 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 Because Rivka has been here for a few years already. And we have harped on the idea that it is impossible to exit saying Hallel to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mi yemalel gvurot Hashem yashmiya kol tehilato. Who is capable of properly articulating every word of praise to God? Whatever you say is not even going to get to a small down payment. So it's downright insulting to say anything. So the answer is we have an exit strategy. And the exit strategy is found in the Mishnah, in Masechet Sukkah, with regard to Hallel, not only on Sukkot, but anytime we say Hallel. We end Hallel by repeating the last psukim. It says, Makom shenagu lichpol. The places that have the custom to double the last psukim, we double. Today, everybody does it. Otcha ki anitani vatili lishua, otcha ki anitani vatili lishua. Until Hodu Lashem ki tov ki ulam chazdo, Hodu Lashem ki tov ki ulam chazdo. That's the exit strategy. And that is, look, I said the pasuk, I'm saying it again, I should really say it a zillion times. I just can't, I'm a human being. I'm limited in time and space. And we're asking Kadosh Baruch Hu to consider the second time as an etc., 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 ... It's ad infinitum. Just goes on and goes on. So every time a sefer comes to an end, of Tanakh, we double the last pasuk. Why? Because Torah is not only study, but it's also praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we have the Torah. That is why, if a person does not understand the text of Tanakh, but reads it like a parrot, there is some level of fulfillment of the mitzvah of Torah study without any understanding whatsoever, as opposed to the oral law, Torah Shabbat Peh, Mishnah, Gemara, and anything goes, Medrash. If you don't understand the basic, what you just read, it's zero of a mitzvah. You can't just read a Mishnah as if it's a piece of Tillim. But if you read Tillim and you don't understand what you just read, it counts as something. And the reason it counts as something, because there's an element of Hallel whenever we read Torah. And that you have in the Chumash itself. It's not a homiletic thought. The Torah teaches us in Parshat Vayelech to write a Sefer Torah. Vata kitvu lechem et hashira hazot. Let's not get too excited. Et hashira hazot Ve'lamda et bnei Yisrael sima b'fihem. So first it's a song and it's also teaching. And it's both. Torah Shebechtav has a dual quality to it. And as Hallel, you can't exit it. So the Rav had an unbelievable understanding what happens when you get to the end of a Chumash. What we do is, the gentleman who gets the last Aliyah, everybody stands up, and we say, Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. What does that mean? Nice minhag, no? Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek. And they're going to be those who are going to go, Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazak. Not Chazek. Why? Because it's Pasuk in Shmuel. It says, Chazak, V'nit Chazek, V'nit Chazak. Chazak, V'nit Chazak, Ba'ad Amenu, Ba'ad Arei Eloheinu. That's what it says. So, okay, whatever you say, you say. Comes the Rav and says, that wasn't the original minhag. The minhag, and he showed that early prints of Chumashim, it said Chazak, like in our Chumashim, it says Chazak. It doesn't say Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazak. It says Ched, Zayin, Kuf. Except in the early prints, it was an abbreviation. It said Ched, Zayin, and a Gershayim, Kuf. That means it was an abbreviation of Chazan and Kahal. Chazan and Kahal. That means when the Baal Koireh came to the end of Bereshit, or Shmot, or Vayikra, or Bamidbar, or on Simchat Torah, the end of Dvarim, the Chazan read the last pasuk, and the Kahal read the last pasuk. This was like repeating the Hodu Lashem Kitov Kilu Lam Chazdo. Because the Baal Koireh is not supposed to read it twice. It's just one reading from the point of view of Kriyat Torah. But the Kahal chimes in with the last pasuk to repeat it, as if no ending. No ending.
Stop doing
Rabbi,
Why? Kacha. Yeah.
about Eicha?
So in Eicha, what we do is, because the very last pasuk is not a positive note, so we actually repeat the second to the last pasuk. And we do this. Hashivenu Hashem Alecha v'neshuva chadeshim v'nekikedem. And we do it also when a person has maftir, if he gets a aliyah maftir on Shabbat Rosh Chodesh, which is the end of Yeshayahu, it's Perek Samach Vav of Yeshayahu. So again, the last pasuk is not as optimistic as we'd like it to be. So we repeat the second to the last. The Baal Koireh is going to repeat that second to the last pasuk. V'haya midei chodesh v'chodsho, midei Shabbat b'Shabbato, yavohu cholam, and so on. So too for Kohelet. Kohelet, the second to the last pasuk is repeated, and Megillat Esther, everybody repeats. Ki Mordechai, Mishneh Melech, Achashverosh, Gadol v'Ratzul Rov Echav. Everybody, that's the minhag. Therefore, the Baal Koireh reads the last pasuk. Everybody reads that last pasuk, and this is all part of the general idea of Chazan v'Kahal. Chazan v'Kahal, and so when you say Kol HaNeshama Talel Yahaluya, what you have is ending the book of Tillim, and that's why we say Kol HaNeshama Talel Yahaluya twice. That's why it's there. And that was the end of Psukei de Zimra. Now comes, in the Middle Ages, add-ons. So the Rambam, he knows about saying Shirat Hayam, Oz Yashir Moshe. He knows about it. Except he doesn't know about it in the place that we have it in the Siddur before Yishtabach. He knows about it after Yishtabach, before Baruch Hu. So you have this, what we call in Hebrew, the tefer, the seam between Psukei de Zimra and Baruch Hu and Yotzer HaMorot. So on Aseret Yemei Tshuva, we throw in a perek, Tillim Kuf Lamed, Shir HaMalot Mimamakim, that we say with great fervor, between Aseret Yemei, from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur inclusive, and some included also on Shana Rabbah. So we have this little place, this space in the Siddur between Yishtabach and Baruch Hu for something. So according to the Rambam, the something every day was Az Yashir Moshe. And then he says, and some communities said, Ha'azinu, every day. Ha'azinu Hashemayim V'Adabera. That's another Shira. And some communities said, both. Those who are pensionerim, had plenty of time to sit in shul, they can have both. And the Rambam says, Hakol Lefi HaMinhag. Just do what the community does and let it go. Now, later on, they move that Shirat Hayam back into Psukei de Zimra, before Yishtabach. If it's before Yishtabach, it means it becomes part and parcel of Psukei de Zimra. But where does Shirat Hayam end? It doesn't end with Vayya Hashem lemelech hakol haaretz. That's where it ends in the Siddur. Where does it end in the Chumash? Hashem yimloch leolam va'ed. And that's why we say it twice. In Azir Shir, Hashem yimloch leolam va'ed. And in parentheses, it has Onkelus's translation, where some communities said Hashem yimloch leolam va'ed twice in Hebrew, and some communities said Hashem yimloch leolam va'ed, and the repeat was in Aramaic. Okay. So you have it in, now today people think they get extra brownie points in Gan Eden for saying everything, even what's in parentheses, but that's okay. It's not a hefsek. You can do that. So what is Ki Lashem Amlucha Moshel Bagoyim V'alu Moshiyim B'Ar Tzion L'Shpot HaTarisa V'ayta Lashem Amlucha V'aya Hashem L'Melech HaKol Haaretz? It's a cut and paste job from Musaf on Rosh Hashanah in the bracha of Malchiot. Because you have 10 psukim of Malchiot, and what is the first pasuk of Malchiot after the Chazan said the entire section of after Aleinu L'Shabeach, and then we have he starts with not Zocher Zichronot. I'm blanking out. Not Vitimlov. No. Where he brings all the psukim of before he gets to Malchiot. After Ochilu Akel Achalef Anav Eshalam Meno Manel Ashon, and that becomes then the signal. Al Kein Nekavel Lecha. Al Kein Nekavel Lecha Hashem Elokeinu Lirot Meirad Tiveret Uzecha Lavir Gilulim Min Haaretz Karot Yikeretun Nataken Olam. See, my mind hasn't gone completely. Can say the whole thing. That Ki lecha ticha kol berach tishava kol lashon lefanecha Hashem Elokeinu yichru v'yipolu v'lechvod shemcha yikar yitenu v'ykablu chulam et ol malchutecha ki hamalchut shelcha hi u'le'omea timloch bechavod kakatuv b'toratecha. Citation number 1: Hashem yimloch le'olam va'ed, and then it says v'ne'emar. So if you have another 2 psukim from Torah, and then you have psukim from Tehillim, and then you have psukim from the Nevi'im, in that order. And then we have another pasuk from the Chumash, which is U'v'toratcha katuv lemar Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So what you have there after Hashem Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed, jumping to the Tehillim, it's Ve'alu Moshiyim B'Har Tzion Lishpot HaTarisa V'ayta L'Hashem Amlucha, and then the Nevi'im from Zechariah, Vaya Hashem L'Melech HaKol Haaretz V'yomo Hashem Echad Shmo Echad, and some Sidurim have in small print, U'v'toratcha katuv lemar Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Echad. All this is just an abbreviated synopsis of what happens to Hashem Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed on Musaf on Rosh Hashanah, and somehow or another it got transferred back to it, and one of the reasons was we were at the level of Tehillim. The whole Psukkah Zimra was Tehillim. U'b'shirei David avdecha na'alelcha Hashem Elokeinu ni'shabechecha u'nfeirecha. Now all of a sudden we jump to the Chumash. Az Yashir Moshe Bnei Yisrael. All right, let's bring it down. Let's bring it down again to Tehillim. So we start quoting these Psukim from Tehillim, and as they say in Gemara expression, Agav Urcha, Im Kvar Nu Kvar. Once we're already quoting from the Musaf, so a few, hitchhikers came along for the ride, and Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Echad. But the whole reason that we downscaled from Shirat Hayam to Valu Mashim B'Har Tzion L'Shpot HaRisav V'ayta L'Hashem Amlucha was to go back to the level of Ketuvim of Tehillim. That's why it was done like that. But the reason that the Hashem Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed was doubled was because that was repeating the Hallel of Shirat Hayam, just like we repeat Kol HaNeshamat Aliyah. All this in preparation to Vayevarch David. Where did Vayevarch David come in? It came in the 13th century by the Kabbalistic group known as the Yordei Merkava. Yordei Merkava, who came down from the chariot. It's a great name. Because they were up there. They were up there in the chariot of Yecheskel and Avi. And they came down to this world, and they brought the concept of the 7 concentric circles, which are Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. And above these 7, You have the upper three, Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at. Chabad. That's where the word Chabad came from. Come from the upper three strata of the... And the Yordei Merkavas believed that to get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to cross the boundaries of all of these concentric circles. Now, there are two ways to move a car. One is manual transmission, and one is automatic transmission. Most cars today are manual transmission, but automatic transmission. But once upon a time, you can still buy a manual transmission with a clutch and a gear. You can still do that. The Yordei Merkava believed that there's manual transmission. You need a clutch to move from Chesed to Gvura, Gvura to Tiferet, and so on. What is the clutch? Music. Music. You get yourself into a trance, a spiritual trance through music, and you move up the ladder. And they believed that there were a handful of very highly spiritualized people who had automatic transmission and were able to move up the rungs without the music. They're called Litvaks. I'll tell you the truth. I once heard a shir from my great Rabbi Rabbi Lichtenstein, who quoted the Rav's brother, Rabbi Soloveitchik, who quoted the Baal Tanya, the author of the Tanya, Reb Shnei Zalman from Liadi, the founder of Chabad, who said that there were three types of nigunim. There was a nigun with words, there was a nigun without words, which is a higher level, and the highest level was a nigun without a nigun. And Rav Aaron just went on, and after the shir, I went over to him, I said, I have an idea of what the nigun without a nigun is. He said, what? I said, it's a Litvish nigun. So, a Litvish nigun. Because I decided he got it, he laughed, he thought it was funny. But the truth is, when I read about Chassidut and read about the Yordei Merkava, the nigun without a nigun was the highest level of being able to get to Kisei HaKavod without the use of the musical clutch, without that use. So you have Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet. And they picked the section of Divrei Yamim Perek Kaftet that had these concentric circles. And they said, we will say it every day to stimulate the engine, to make the move. Lecha Hashem hagdula, v'gvura, v'tiferet, v'anetzach, v'ahod. Lecha Hashem hamlamlacha, to get to malchut. Notice you don't have all of them, and they're all not in the exact order, but most of them are in the order, and most of them are there. And this is why they put the Vayvarach David section into the Siddur as an oral method of tuning ourselves to get into the mode of jumping from Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and arrive at Malchut. So this is why this got there. And that is why this Haderet V'Emunah, which is completely Kabbalistic, has all of the factors of the 7 concentric circles there, right? So if you go back to the poem, Hadeh v'adibur, hahod v'hadar, hod is there, vad v'tikut. Vad usually means a get-together, a committee of sorts. But a committee, vad, also has to do with appointment. You make an appointment for a committee, which means the timing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has absolute timing. Timing. Now I'm just going to give you an example of what I mean by timing. The Gemara tells us, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do after the destruction, after he created the world? What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? He took vacation, right? He's early pensive. So the Gemara says he makes shidduchim. Very good. Gemara says he makes shidduchim. Now, according to one understanding, HaKadosh Baruch Hu never completed the creation. Hamachadesh betuvo b'chol yom tamid maaseh breshit. It's ongoing. And you know who agrees with this? Einstein. Because it's an expansion. The universe is constantly expanding, which means the process of the creation of the world has actually not stopped. But for the point of view of mortal man on planet Earth, it came to an end with the ending with Shabbat. Fine. So what does the Kadosh Baruch Hu do? So the Gemara says, correct, that he's busy making shidduchim. And then it says, Kashe alav ki kriyat yamsuf. It's like murder to make a good shidduch. It's not an easy thing. It's like splitting the Red Sea, ki kriyat yamsuf. 1 second. How hard was kriyat yamsuf for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It wasn't murder. For us, it's murder. But for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it was nothing. So what does it mean? Kashe alav ki kriyat yamsuf. So the Rambam tells us in the Guide to the Perplexed that all of the miracles that we call supernatural miracles were actually also anchored in natural law. And he speaks about Kriyat Yamsuf. The Torah says, Vayolech Hashem ruach yam kol halayla, very strong western gust poured from the west, and it split. Now, everybody can do this at home in a laboratory experiment. Take a nice big shissel, fill it up to the top with water, and take a high-speed fan and hold it on top of the water. You're going to see Kriyat Yamsuf right there, right in front, because the force of the air is going to split the water, and half is going to spill it out, pour out. That's what's going to happen, because the pressure of the air is going to do it. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu did something that was highly unusual. What on CNN they call, they have a word for very special weather, unusual weather. What's the word they use? They have a phrase for it. What?
Perfect storm.
No. They have a phrase for type of weather that's I forgot. For unusual type of weather condition. So obviously this was a highly unusual meteorological phenomenon, but it was a meteorological phenomenon nevertheless. So where was the miracle? The timing. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it for Am Yisrael at that split second that they needed it. Kashe alav shiduchim kekriyat yamsuf. Many times we know that a fellow goes out on a date, nothing happens, fine. The guy moves on to the next name or phone number that he has, and so on. 3 years later, they get together and they get married. What happened 3 years ago? The timing wasn't right. It has to do with timing. That's it. Kashe alav kekriyat yamsuf. So this is the va'ad. The Kadosh Baruch Hu keeps the timing. And vatikut, the timing has something to do with contemporary, and vatik has to do with stuff that's happened already. Ata zocher, ma'aseh olam, right? Vatikin, things of old. Hazach v'hazohar, things are absolutely pure and shiny. Everything is absolutely pure. Chayil v'chosen, strength, defense and strength. Chayil means strength, defense, and chosen means strength. Tekes v'hatohar. So tekes means order. That's why we call a ceremony a tekes, because it's in order. There's a program to a tekes, right? And you always, when the guy finally says at the end, Tom Tekes, I used to think that was his name, Tom Tekes, right? Tom Tekes. Hayichud v'hayira. He is the one who we say yichud to. We are miyached. We say Hashem is echad. V'hayirah. And we fear him. Keter v'hakavod. He's the one with the throne and the honor. Lekach is the Torah. Ki lekach tov natati lachem. The lekach is the source of the Torah.
Rosh Hashanah yid lekach.
Yid lekach. Okay. And the libuv means attraction. It has to do with lave, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu pulls you. It's attractive. Kadosh Baruch Hu pulls people towards him, and boy, doesn't he. There's no atheist in a foxhole. You know who said that? A British chaplain in the 19th century, in the British Army. There's no atheist in a foxhole. When the mortars are falling, all of a sudden there are no atheists. Everybody believes in God right then and there. Hamamlucha v'hamemshala, right? Governing. That's all God. Hanoi v'hanetzach. Right. That's why we say when we see a king, shechalak michochmoto lebasar v'dam. God gave something over from his glory, his majesty, to human beings. And this is what the Rabbi was saying. All of these characteristics are also human. They're not human. They're divine, except that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is willing to share them with us. Hanoi v'hanetzach, the beauty and the forever, permanent. Sigui v'hasegev, Right, there's no samach. And in poetic language, a sin is permissible to replace a samach. It's done all the time. Hasigui vasegev. It's interesting that in the second version, it's hasod. And they have vasechel, and they have a samach for the first one. Right. So sigui means gova. It means height. And I have the pasuk in the second page. I'm just going to read quickly. Ha'oz v'hanava. This became a book of the Rav that was put out posthumously with this name, and that is Majesty and Humility. It's all a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Haptut v'hap'er, hatzvi v'hatzedek, hakriya v'ktusha, haron v'haromimut, shir v'shevach, hatila v'tiferet. This is the Hader Emunah that we, playing the role of angels on Yom Kippur, are permitted to sing. Haderet Emunah, in any nigun variation that you may have. Okay, my apologies for overshooting the 10:15 line.